literature that have never really been widely known. So they're written in an oral style, a unique tradition, and they're very engaging. And one of the greatest is the story of Niall, which is this story about the seismic events that shake up Western Iceland just as Christianity is rising. And in the first half, the greatest of all the living warriors of Iceland, Gunnar, the mightiest warrior since Egil, is slain. And in the second half, Christianity comes, and you get a second death, the burning of Niall. And the entire point of the saga is this contrast between the pagan death, Gunnar who dies, all guns blazing, slaying those who would slay him, and his wife who treacherously murders her husband or has him slain in memory of some old slight. And the contrast then with that is with the Christian Niall, the greatest lawgiver of Iceland, the man without a beard, and his loyal wife. The only other thing you need to know is that Niall has 4 fearsome sons, led by the eldest, Skarphedin, and 1 son-in-law, Kari, who comes from Dublin, but is Norse. And I'll start with the burning of Gunnar, and then we'll pick it up from there. As the smoke rose on the fire, a black boat came. It came from the Eastlands, and in the boat there were warriors, and in the boat there were books, and in the boat were monks. And as they raked away the ashes of Gunnar, the monks arrived with psalms. And they went from the hamlets to the villages, and the villages to the towns, and they brought the good word with them, and they brought the sword with them, and they brought the gold of Harold Finehair. And one by one, all the farms swore to the new faith. They swore to abhor old One Eye and the gods of blood and the demons of Europe. They swore to worship the new God. And many men remarked on it and wondered what would come. And some said One Eye would go to sleep, and others that the blue unwinking eye of Odin, Lord of the heavens, would not forget Iceland, at least not so quickly. And so it came to pass, for blood will have blood, and One Eye, Odin, would not so quietly go up the Gladsheim and wait for his doom. He threw out perhaps the bones of fate, or perhaps it was just a hatred in men's hearts. But blood will have blood, and murder, murder. And Skarphedin did not change his ways, forever that he was a Christian. For all the fact he went to the great church in Reykjavik. He quarrelled with all his neighbours as always he had done. He fought them as often as he had done. And one by one, all the farms in Western Iceland swore hatred for Skarphedin and for his 3 brothers. And men wondered what would happen. Well, the year went on. It became midsummer, and there were rumours. There were rumours in the fields. There were rumours in the woods that before the thing in September, before the great council, when Niall, it was said, was going to plead for his son's life, men would come. It was on Midsummer's Day, when Kari came back. He had been off in Dublin with his wife, and he came back with 10 men, and unquiet news. News that he had seen shifting in the fields, warriors, armed to the teeth, and it seemed that all the enemies of Skarphedin were coming, 108 of the finest warriors of Western Iceland. And they were coming fast. Coming, Kari thought, behind him, but he was not sure. And then Skarphedin called his father and his mother together there in their farm and said, "Father, mother, this is my fate. I would not have you had it." And Niall said, "I don't know whose fate it is, but I will not leave my farm." And his wife said, "And I will not leave my sons." And then Skarphedin dismissed all the servants who would go. And only 10 of their bravest men stayed with him. And Kari said he'd stay too with his warriors, 20. plus the sons of Niall, against 108 of the finest warriors of Iceland. And soon they saw them coming up the hill, all armed to the teeth, in fierce hearts. And as Niall the old, the beardless lawgiver, the man of peace, looked down, he muttered to himself, and he said, I would not have it to end this way. I would not in the days of One Eye. I doubly would not now. I am too old for this. What say you, my sons? We go into my house. Let us make an end of it there. And he turned, and without waiting for their answer, he went into their house. And the sons looked at each other, for they knew the house had a thatch roof, and it had not rained in many months. And all men know what that means. But one by one, 3 of his sons said, let us do what our father wants, for he has always been our lawgiver. And so his 3 younger sons joined him. And Skarphedinn snorted. He counted 108 warriors. He looked at Kari, the finest warrior in Ireland. And he thought, I wish it had been different. It should have been different. But I will not defy the words of my father. I am not scared to die. What say you, Kari? Will you join us? And Kari said no. No, I came to fight, not to roast. And then Skarphedinn said, all right, take your men and the men of my household and ride off. But if we survive and you die, we will avenge you, and you do the same on us, in the name of the gods that were. And Kari rode off. Now, the men who were coming up, the 108, saw it was Kari and let him go. But they formed a circle around the house. And they rode round it, prowling. But at every window there seemed to be a son of Niall looking, and they were firing bows. And any of the warriors 8 tried of it, came up to the house, were slain, or taken, were slain by the fearsome Skarphedinn, with his black, bushy brows, the greatest warrior in Iceland. Now Gunnar was dead. Now the would-be assassins were led by Getir the White. And Getir the White soon realised that they had not quite the strength to force their way into the house past the warrior sons of Niall. And so he went up to the very walls of the house, without sword, and said, calling in and said, Niall, will you come out? For I would not have you the fate that must now follow. And Niall said, no, I will not leave my house. And then Grettir, who had always been the friend of Niall's wife, called to her and said, will you come? And she said, no, I married Niall young, and I will not leave him. And Grettir then, sadly, went back to where the other assassins were waiting, and he said to them, we can't afford to fail. We will gain no honour by it, but we will die if we don't. And he took an arrow, and he dipped it in pitch, and he lit the end. And he shot it up, and it landed straight on the thatch. And soon the thatch was roasting as the hottest fire of honey of the hottest forge, and the roof collapsed. But Niall, even though the burners, the assassins, rode round, calling him to come out, stayed in the house, turning at last to his wife and saying, let us go to bed, my dear, for there is no more to do. And the 2 of them went to bed as the roof collapsed, killing his 4 sons, last of all the fearsome Skarphedinn, who men said in his last sung a hymn to One Eye. Now the burners gained no honour by this killing, and blood will have blood, and men knew that Kari would come back for them. And And so it proved that spring. With 50 warriors he came, in 5 strong ships from Ireland, from the Norse kingdom of Dublin. And he came into Reykjavik harbour, and the burners that were still alive were fearful. And those that were foolish started to flee, and Kari decreed that he would hunt them down, every one of them. And then Grettir called the burners that lived and stayed and said, "We cannot fight Kari, not with his 50 warriors, the finest fighters in Iceland, sons of kings, and others will come, for we are not popular for what we have done. Let us meet him. Let us meet him this Lord's Day in the great church of Reykjavik, the one that we recently built." And so it was. That Lord's Day, Kari and his great warriors rode down to the church, and there unarmed was Grettir the White. And as Kari dismounted from his horse, Grettir bared his neck to him and said, "Strike, strike, by the old way you must slay me, but I would ask you to have mercy, and I would beg you for your forgiveness. Slay me if you must, but forgive me if you can." And Kari looked at the church, and he looked at the neck, and he took his sword and he broke it. And there and then, under the holy bells of Reykjavik Church, he swore to be Grettir the White's friend. And so men learned the ways of compassion, and so men turned from the old one eye. And so blood had blood and was no more.
Thank you.